Think horse racing is too complicated? Think again.
And they're off!
Every pro was a newbie once. Meet DRF Newbie, the mobile tool loaded with daily racing form data and the power of DRF AI.
What a shocker!
Get the insights you need fast so you can play smarter and feel more confident. DRF Newbie, horse racing made simple. Try it free today. Visit newbie.drf.com.
It is Kentucky Derby week. We are so excited for one of the biggest weeks, probably the biggest week in all of horse racing, with Kentucky Oaks Friday, Kentucky Derby Saturday. I am Gino Buccola. I'm sitting alongside a couple of my very good friends, and we're going to introduce them to you for the Daily Racing Form. Folks that may not know them, we're going to preview Kentucky Oaks Friday on this show and get into the graded stakes action there. But before we do, let's introduce the crew. Let's start off with Ryan Anderson there. Ryan, how's everything going, buddy? Tell everyone a little bit about yourself. That we may have seen you doing some stuff on FanDuel, and you and Jackson and Noah have a show together. Introduce yourself, Ryan, to the Daily Racing Form audience.
Yeah, Gino, great to be on with you and all the DRF peeps. Myself and Jackson Muniz, the gentleman below me, we host a show called The Gallop Out over on In the Money Media. I'll let Noah at the end talk about the show that the three of us have together because he's hosting that one. So I'll let him take the lead there. But yeah, I do some simulcast stuff at Del Mar as well. I work for Doug O'Neill doing anything that involves a computer. So a little bit of everything out here. But I love to handicap, love to talk horses, especially with you three.
Yeah, that older generation, they need our help on the computers, right, Ryan? I do the same
Doug
thing.
Doug has given up completely.
Yep. I was like,
anything with a computer is all me.
Anytime that there's a Laker game like on Peacock or on Prime Video, I'm getting a call from my dad. What's the login? How do we get it all set up? So I understand that completely. Jackson, how's everything going on your end, buddy? Talk to us a little bit about yourself.
Going great. Excited to be here with you guys. Excited for Derby week. And yeah, echo what these guys said. We do stuff with In the Money, do stuff with HHH, some work with Twin Spires every now and then. So doing some different things. And I'm very much in the older generation group. I just show up to these shows. I let Ryan do all the hosting gig, all the producing. Beautiful. I let Noah do all the hosting. I just show up and talk. My job's easy.
Awesome. Kick back. You'll see Jackson at one point with his feet up as he's sitting back even. Then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we've got Noah, who's going to be, taking care of all the housekeeping stuff. I actually met all these fellas a year ago at the NHC. And so over the last year, we've had an opportunity to do some shows together a few times. And Noah, what I love about you guys, you're young guys in horse racing. We don't have a lot of young people in horse racing that are enthusiastic, that are passionate. And I love chatting racing with you guys. Noah, talk to us a little bit about your show and what you do in racing.
Yeah, so these two boys do their own show, obviously, with the Gallop app, but I get to control things over on the HHH Racing podcast on Tuesday nights. So Tuesday nights, anywhere from 8 to 9:30 Eastern. We have a lot of fun. I think as time's gone on, it's a little more banter back and forth with each other and some side bets and good stuff. But obviously, we've got some good content and some good handicapping as well. So obviously love doing that with those guys, and then just wrapping up my last year here in Lexington at the University of Kentucky. So real world is going to set in pretty soon, but anytime you're leading up to the Derby, it just feels like things are magical.
Last year or last week?
Last week.
Right?
Actually,
last week.
Last 2 weeks.
I was going to say, it's a whirlwind, right? Yeah. So hopefully...
No, you've been on like 6 shows this week. When are your finals? When are you doing school?
We find time.
It's still going on, right?
That's as far as I'm going. We find time.
In the background somewhere. Well, hopefully we can have a little school session for all of the folks that'll be watching. That's our goal. We're going to try to get some winners for all of the folks out there. I think on Friday, 13 races on Kentucky Oaks Day, 7 graded stakes races. The action all starts in race number 7, and the Oaks goes off a little later this year, 8:40 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to go as race number 13. It's really cool. They're going to actually have a late card at Santa Anita to accompany some of the Oaks racing and the late racing at Churchill Downs. So there'll be some very good action on Friday night. Let's dive on in. I'm going to pull up the past performances. I want to let everybody know that you can diving in right now with the Kentucky Derby packages. If you are playing Friday and Saturday, we have a couple different things for you. We've got the 2-day clocker reports. Mike Welsh has been out there looking at all the horses training over the last few weeks. We've also got the betting strategies. So if you want some help, David Aragona, Marcus Hirsch, they give you some of their suggested wagers all throughout the day. You can kind of pick and choose. Maybe you can add some of their horses to your pick 4s or pick 5s. If you need a little bit of help, check all that stuff out over at shop.drf.com. So we will go around the horn here, and we will take our time, look through each of the races. And then at the end, we're going to share some of the best bets, because everybody gave me a couple best bets that we like. So we can talk about them as we go through, and you can mention they're one of them. And we'll just remind everybody again at the end as we go through. So let's start out with you, Ryan, as we head on over to the grade 2 Unbridled Sidney. It's going to be turf sprint, 5.5 furlongs, the distance. And the horse that everyone is going to start with in here is the Breeders' Cup winner, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner. She's So Spicy. She's 9-5 on the morning line, but we have not seen her run since the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. She had a little bit of a hiccup. She missed a trip to Saudi with, she got sick. It wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't like a big injury or anything, but it was just unfortunate timing for her. So she misses that race. She's not able to run there. This is going to be her first start of the year. I mean, we know she's brilliant. She's incredible at her absolute best. So starting with you, Ryan, do you think she's really tough? Is she unbeatable in here? Are you looking for elsewhere? What do you do with She's So Spicy, and how do you see this race unfolding?
Yeah, she's obviously very tough. You know, that was a brilliant win by Irad, and She's So Spicy last year in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. I do think coming back here, though, you know, the work tab, you mentioned the illness that kept her out of Saudi, but the work tab has been a little spotty. It's been, you know, every 8 days kind of is the most frequent, sometimes longer than that. That to me shows that obviously, you know, a Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner, they have bigger aspirations as the season's going to go forward. This is just a jumping off point. So while I do think that she's going to be ready for her 4-year-old debut here, I do think she's a little bit beatable, especially if Hall and Ice shows up here. That is another major speed presence right to the outside. Moonspun as well has that 5 furlong speed from Gulfstream. I do think she's a little bit up against it. I went with a couple of massive prices, and I'm sure we'll go over that in the best bets later, but I like the Rail Horse in Maytown a little bit. Florent Giroux and Brian Lynch teaming up. And then the 4, Creed's Gold, I think has huge upset potential here. These are both horses that like to come from off the pace. And in terms of Creed's Gold, you get 20-1 on the line for Mark Cassey, who's a fantastic turf sprint trainer, and Flavian Pratt, who does so little wrong. I know that they're both going to be flying late. I don't know. You know, I'm not, I would say, the most confident that they're going to win, but they're both a pair of 20-1 shots. And I do think She's So Spicy is vulnerable in this spot.
She's So Spicy, maybe a vulnerable spot. Jackson, for the short price horses making their first start of the year, coming off a little bit of a break, sometimes these are the chances to, you know, take a shot against the short price. Do you agree with that in this spot? You going in a different direction? How do you feel about this 7th race?
Yeah, like I think especially when you're talking about a filly that just won the Breeders' Cup, the time to beat her would be the first time out if that's what you're looking to do. The problem is, and I think Ryan and I see this pace scenario a little differently, I don't think there's as much speed as Ryan believes. I know Hall and Ice is drawn to her outside, but there's a big difference between dirt sprint speed and turf sprint speed. And the one time Hall and Ice did run on the turf, she was kind of not outrun, but she definitely was not up on the pace like she has been on the dirt. And the only other speed horse in here is Moonspun, who just is not quite in the league of She's So Spicy. So I felt like it's kind of her race to lose. Am I dying to bet her at 9-5 or potentially lower? No, but I'm also, if I'm playing some kind of horizontals, it's kind of one where I'm just going to take her and move on, because I don't really think she's going to be, you know, 80% cranked up for a $500,000 race. They're trying to win. They're tightening the screws. They're going to go.
Noah, I kind of feel right in the middle of the two of Jackson and Ryan. Like, I think I agree with Jackson that there's not that much speed. I do wonder if, you know, including like the fact that she had a little bit of a hiccup and she had a sickness and she was backed up a little bit. Like, so I'm going back and forth and kind of humming and hawing a little bit. Do you have a strong opinion in this race one way or the other, Noah?
Not super strong. I just feel like at the end of the day, when you buy a Breeders' Cup winner for $5.2 million, especially with the opportunity they missed with the big hiccup, and obviously they wanted to take her across the border and across the seas, it just feels like it's hard for me to believe that they would try to race her into shape with the limited opportunities, especially sprinting on the grass. For fillies, that they would kind of use this spot as maybe a springboard to something else. So I don't really have a strong opinion, to try to talk people off the fact of trying to beat her, just because obviously she's going to be short price. She's got some serious credentials. But I do find herself in a pretty favorable scenario up front in a race that just kind of the other logicals, I don't really feel like they're really at the level that she has when she's on her game.
Right. And I feel like I'm kind of in the same boat as Noah. Is like, not only do I think She's So Spicy's credentials are strong, but the alternatives just aren't that appealing. And I think if I was trying to beat her, I'd kind of be more in the Ryan's camp, where if I'm going to try to beat her, I want to do it with a horse that's going to be a big price.
Yeah, I think I agree in that sense, Jackson. Like I like Time to Dazzle a little bit, but it's like she really needs a setup, right? And if they don't go that fast early on, is she just going to be lengths behind She's So Spicy and not really have much of a chance? I have a little bit of respect for Queen Maxima. I think it is worth mentioning, at least with Queen Maxima, an incident that happened, because they're doing something different in Southern California now with like the downhill protocols. And there was actually an article in the Daily Racing Forums from Steve Anderson that said, so there was a breakdown. So they've back on April the 4th. So they've changed some of they want to make it as safe as possible coming down the hill. So what's happened is the jockeys now have to school their horses over the dirt crossing before they head up the hill, just to get the horses familiar with going from like the dirt to the turf and how that can be different. Right. And Queen Maxima, when she ran her last race, Juan Hernandez did not do that initially. So he gets up to the gate and then they tell him he has to go all the way back down. So she was all the way up at the starting gate. She goes all the way back down to the bottom of the hill and then has to go back up to the gate. He said by the time the race started, she was done. She had like nothing, So if you're looking at Queen Maxima and you were thinking about playing her or you like her and that race concerns you a little bit, just keep in mind that in the Monrovia, she had no late punch, no energy. She already went up and down a hill basically before they had to run that race. So something to keep in mind moving forward. But I think they put this race, it does start a pick 5, but I think they put this race a little earlier in the card on purpose because She's So Spicy is probably going to be a pretty short favorite in here. And I don't know how many other great options there are. I love that Ryan's found a couple to take some swings with, and we'll get into Ryan's double because I think I have it up here. Ryan, you are going to play a double starting in this race, right? That's going to be one of your plays?
Yeah, that is going to be one of them. I just got to start with, the 1 and the 4. Again, I'll play this pretty light. There's 2 20-1 shots that they're not going to win all that often, but I'll play it enough where if they win, that's probably going to, pay for the weekend. I do think Goodall in the next race is going to be extremely tough to beat. And I think Jackson is the one that said it earlier in a group chat that Eric Asmussen to Flavien Prat's probably the jockey upgrade of the century. And that's Eric Asmussen, who's been riding very well also at Oaklawn. But you get Flavien Prat on this horse now, you're drawn really well. You get the speed advantage. To me, that's the horse that I want to kind of key in on. I do think 3-1 is a very fair price, and I think it's probably going to hold up. On Time Girl is a horse that's going to take money, and she always does in her races. So, I'm going to play a small double with those 2 absolute bombs into Goodall. Yeah, Goodall. And just, hope to start the weekend off strong.
Leads us right into the grade 2 8 bells. That's going to be race number 8. And what is cool about the Oaks and the Derby weekend is like the 8 bells race and the Pat Day Mile race, right? You get these races that are strong competitive races with good 3-year-olds. These are horses that just didn't want to go that far, or they maybe weren't quite Kentucky Oaks horses, but they're sprinters or they're just below that level. And you were pointing out, On Time Girl, she was like right at the top of the 3-year-old filly division, and she ran one kind of poor race. And now she's in a spot like this, not quite facing the Oaks fillies. So if you can get one of those prices through, you will be to Goodall. And then Jackson, I know you also like this horse a little bit in this spot, right?
Yeah, and honestly, if we're looking at this entire card as a whole, if she loses, I'm probably not going to have a winning day. I just think I think she towers over this field. And if she runs back to that most recent race at Oaklawn, she crushed those horses. And that was a good field she faced that day. She was kind of in a tricky spot down the backside where the horse outbroke her from her outside and was trying to come over and just didn't get super comfortable early on. But once the horse finally crossed over, she was able to flip outside. She just took off again in the stretch. And I think she drew really well in this race. Now she's on the far outside. again, kind of like the race before, I don't see a whole lot of other speed. I think French Friction is probably the horse that's expected to give her some company up front, but sometimes when these horses cut back from these two-turn races, they don't show as much speed as they did sprinting. And again, with Goodall having the far outside post, she's going to have plenty of options. If she breaks, great, go to the front. If someone wants to outbreak from the inside, she'll just sit off like she did last time at Oaklawn Park. And the thing I like the most, I think, about that most recent race too, is in her first couple of races, you can kind of see her pace figures were kind of declining in the final furlongs. It gets slower. But at least in the most recent race, they were pretty steady throughout. It was the last two were 116, and they were 117 early. So she was very, very steady on throughout that entire race. And that kind of indicates that horses will usually be able to continue running as they stretch out to this 7 furlong distance. So I think she's a lock. I shouldn't say lock. I think she's going to be very difficult to beat in this race. And I much like the race before too, I just wasn't in love with the on-time girls, with the Paradises cutting back, with Riverwind, who I guess had a little bit of trouble last time, but really wasn't up to the task either. So, and not only do I love this horse quite a bit, but I just found a lack of alternatives in this spot.
He threw the lock out, but then he brought it back.
Got love and lock.
Well, I have been
name analysis.
I know.
I've been told very sternly not to use that word anymore by this guy and by this guy. So
I was gonna say I've just had a few of those times where I was on TVG back in the day, and I was like so confident about a horse, and I was just like puffing my chest out, man, and I got humbled a few times doing that, and I was like, I'll like make sure I'm like, I think the most likely winner is, like I'll be very careful about like the way that I say things too, because his name is Noah, not Goodall. I had Goodall smacked across his face for a little while just a moment ago down there. So Noah, like anytime we pull up a play, like you're not the double, Noah, you are Noah as we pull. But I will say, I'm not going to do that to you too much because you got way too good looking of a mug for me to do that. I mean, that's why I know a lot of people are tuning into this show. We got ratings coming in from all the ladies that are coming in to watch Noah. So Noah, how are we going to help those ladies that are tuning in to make some money on this race?
Well, not only do I need to look good, I need to sound good. But yeah, I'm with these guys. I think she's got a big shot. And I think the biggest feather in her cap is the post, just because it seems like maybe there isn't a ton of speed, but it just kind of seems like, to me, at least the connections of Riverwind are not going to want to happen what happened last time, where they obviously didn't break and got put into a tight spot. So it seems like they're going to go French Friction from the inside. I feel like her hand is kind of forced. And Sippin' Pretty is pretty fast too. And even On Time Girl, I think, is going to be close to the pace. So I feel like there's an outside chance that it does heat up. But with her style and the way that she drew, I think it's going to set up beautifully because, like Jackson said, I mean, Pratt can just break, look to his left, and kind of navigate things from there. I think the other alternative that I'll be using is the 7, Love Your Neighbor, in case things do heat up front. I just feel like there's a case to be made that maybe she's kind of plateaued and she's not moving forward. But I think there's a chance that she moves forward, cutting back to a distance that I think is much more optimal for her, just because she got right up to the leaders in some of those races down at the fairgrounds, just didn't go by and didn't really make much of an improvement to want to pass horses or any desire to want to go that far, go the 2-turn distance. So I think the cutback is going to do her some good. And like I said, there's a chance that things heat up. So hopefully she's not too far back, but she should be one that should have a good amount of stamina in here and should be running late.
One of the big problems that Love Your Neighbor had, in the Rachel Alexandra 2 starts back and in the Silver Bullet Day 3 starts back, was that I bet her those days. So, that was like a major issue that she had, because as she loomed up, I am just, oh, great. She's going to go right by Bella Ballerina here. And then, gosh, was it hanging? Was she losing to horses that were a little bit better? I kept going to the well, and then I was wondering, like, okay, this might just be who she is. You can at least give her a chance in here cutting back. So that's what I will say, is that maybe now, because the circumstances are different, when she looms up, maybe she'll have a little more late punch than when she was going those 2 turns and she would idle and kind of flatline, because she would loom up and even stick her head in front. And it's like, oh my gosh, she's going right by. She's going to win this race by 3 lengths. And then she would hang and idle. So this is the spot in the back of my head that I've been, for a couple months, been thinking, like, this is the one that makes sense for her, the cutback, where she can maybe do that same thing and have a little more late punch. And if not, then we just know that she might be one of those types of horses, right? There's a lot of horses that are pack animals. They don't mind settling for seconds or thirds. They don't have that killer winstinct right? They can loom up, but
Nice.
they don't have the difference between finishing second and winning, right? And so Noah, I hope that we can get her to have a little bit more punch on the cutback here, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the worry is, maybe she'll be a little out of her element just because there's some, decent speed horses that are going to be probably quite a ways in front of her.
Yeah.
Just with the natural speed that she possesses going to turn. So she might kind of find herself out of her element where she's normally used to being a length and a half off. Where in this case, she might, be ahead of one horse and have 4 or 5 lengths to make up. So that would be kind of the minor concern, just the switch in tactics and where she'll find herself early.
Are you guys
Ryan,
worried about the most recent race? Because I agree that she has cutback in all across her forehead, but I wish she had kind of run a little bit better in the fairground.
Like,
and I worry she's maybe tailing off a little bit.
A little, because that was now like 3 races in a row where she ran her eyeballs out, right? Yeah. And lost, and she ran really hard too. And then she was a little disappointing. But I do think those 2 that she faced last time are probably just like a tier above her. Sure. Life of Joy and Bella Ballerina. I think they would have probably been 2 of like the top 5-ish for the Oaks. So yeah, I go back and forth. The key is I don't want to take less than like 6-1 on her. Like 5-6-1. I think that's fair for her chances in here. If she gets below that and she's like 9-2 or something like that, then I start having real concerns if the price matches her chances of winning the race. But Ryan, we started with you. You want to put a bow on this one? Anything else you want to add in the 8 bells?
Yeah, you and I both bet Love Your Neighbor in the Rachel Alexandra. And she went by Bella Ballerina and then looked around for competition. I wonder if she is the type of filly that really just needs that perfectly timed move where she gets ahead and then doesn't have enough time to throw it away. So I do like her. I do think cutback is what she's ultimately going to like to do, as you guys have all said. But yeah, I'm with Jackson. I'm with Noah. If Goodall has a bad day, I'm also going to have a bad day. Because I think she fits like a glove in here.
We all agree that she's the horse to beat. So if for any reason the prices are close, like between her and On Time Girl, maybe this is a race where you can really lean on her and get some of that separation. Or heck, for whatever reason, if she is a bettable price on the win end, even, So yeah, if there's one thing you're going to take from all of us out of this race, it's that we do feel pretty good about the race that she'll run. Noah and I are going to give Love Your Neighbor one more shot back here as we move to the grade 2 Alley Sheba. That one's coming up next. And this Alley Sheba race is going to be race number 9. This one is going to start the pick 5 that takes you right into the Kentucky Oaks. Guys, what a good group they have. I mean, normally in the graded stakes races for older horses, we never get races like this. We get 1 or 2 of the good horses. That's like an overwhelming favorite. They'll face like 3 or 4 tomato cans, and like you never see a big field like this. We have like 7 graded stakes winners of the 9 horses in this field. We have 4 grade 1 winners. What's pretty funny, a week before the Kentucky Derby last year, Tapan Street was my horse. I loved him. I had him in a fantasy league. He was going to be my guy. He had his last workout on the Saturday a week before, and then he got hurt. He had to scratch. He wasn't able to enter. So then I had to call an audible and make a change, and the horse that became my new selection was Grande. And then Grande scratches right before the Kentucky Derby.
But nothing was wrong.
And then a year later, they're both in the same race, which is just hilarious to me, like right next to each other, Grande and Tapan Street. It's like just reminding me of a year ago where it's like, oh man, I had to call audibles a couple different times. But you got those 2 who were really good 3-year-olds last year. Baeza is a grade 1 winner. He's going to be making his first start of the season. The only horse in the race that I think might be up against it a little bit from a class standpoint is Navajo Warrior, just because we haven't seen him competing at the graded stakes level. But I mean, you go down through the entire rest of the field. The 5 East Avenue just comes out of the grade 3 Oaklawn Mile where he was behind New What's New. He's a grade 1 winner. New What's New has run 4 awesome races in a row. He's won 3 of them. His only loss was to Magnitude, who just went over and won the Dubai World Cup. You get to Skippy Longstocking. This is the best that he's ever been. He's never won 3 races in a row. He had never won a grade 1 before the Pegasus World Cup. He is in career form right now. Corporate Power isn't even a graded stakes winner, but he's coming off a 106 buyer last time out, and he could have an awesome year himself as an older horse. This is just top to bottom. Disruptor is cross-entered. He's also entered in a race on Saturday in the Grade 1 Churchill Downs, which is a loaded race. If in either spot, he's like a fun price horse, either place that he shows up. So let's start with you, Jackson, in this one in the Grade 2 Alley Sheba. I mean, a lot of directions to go in here. Who are some of the horses that are on your radar?
Yeah, this is a really difficult race. And the one thing I do want to do is I want to try to beat Baez in this spot.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be over bet. He hasn't run in 6 months now. He's gone out for Bill Ma. He's been running against Journalism, Sovereignty. I just don't think we're going to see his absolute best. And it kind of feels like he's going to need his absolute best to beat some of these who are kind of on the improve. And this has kind of been their target all along. So I'm against him in here. I'm really curious. I want Gino to ask, are you doing the show with Craig tomorrow, right? I'm curious what he has to say about the number in the Oaklawn Mile, because the Oaklawn Mile in time form came back a 127 and the Buyer came back a 92.
Really light.
And that
right?
is about as big of a difference as you are ever going to see. I mean, it's about a roughly 15-point difference. So that's a huge disagreement, because if you take the 107 number, you're supposed to bet those two horses at 10-1 all day long. But if you look at the Buyer at 92, it's obviously those horses can't really contend with this field. And the fact that the way I'm viewing it, at least, is that Full Serrano missed the break by like 5 lengths and then ran 5 wide around both turns and still only finished 4th by a few lengths. So I find it hard to believe that he ran that big of a figure with all that trouble. So I'm going to try to lean on the Buyer number a little bit for those two horses. So I'm going to look at Disruptor, I think, in this spot, assuming he runs in here. I just think he's a horse that's kind of on the improve. He's got tactical speed. He drew well. I like the outside draw for him because he can kind of play the break a little bit. He can go forward if he needs to, or he can tuck in mid-pack and still be effective. And I just thought that last race in the Challenger was really, really good. I mean, he stopped a fast pace, took on a challenge from Disco Time, who got a much better trip and was drawing away from that rival late. So if he's able to improve off of that in his 3rd start of the year, I think he's gonna be tough. And his was a horse that was all the talk last winter at Gulfstream Park, when they kind of, he came in and lost his debut, and then his smashing maiden win, and they threw him the Wolves in the Florida Derby. Didn't quite work out, but there's always been expectations here. So if he's running in this spot, if he's 6-1, I think he's a horse you have to take a pretty long look at. If he does not run, I would look at the horse drawn directly to his inside and Corporate Power, who might have just figured things out last time down at the fairgrounds. I mean, Touch Upon a Star is a really, really good horse down at fairgrounds. He took it to him. Didn't quite get there, but I think Touch Upon a Star would be the horse to beat in this race if he was entered. And you're going to give me 10-1 on Corporate Power, who is not that far behind Touch Upon a Star. So those are the two I'm looking at, posts 8 and 9.
Towards the outside for Jackson. Yeah, Corporate Power should be ready for a big effort, 3rd off the long layoff. And Disruptor, I mean, he ran right, or Disruptor just beat Disco Time right on the square. Disco Time stuck his head in front. He got a perfect trip. He looked like he was going to be able to win that race easily. And Disruptor just was better. And all of a sudden, now you look at his overall body of work, he was only 7-2 in the Florida Derby, right? He got action in that race, and he had a bad start, and then he just didn't have a shot. Everything else is good from him. And he's super lightly raced with a bunch of upside. I think either spot that he runs in, he's going to be on my pick 4s and pick 5 tickets if it's going to be on Friday or on Saturday. Let's go over to you, Noah, in this spot. Who are some of the horses that, if you start a pick 5, that you might want on your pick 5 ticket here?
Yeah, I'd probably have to use quite a few. And to Jackson's point, I do agree in the fact that I think in the grand scheme of things, this is the spot or the opportunity that I do want to play against Baeza, because, again, I think he's going to be a significant favorite in here. And he can make good cases for horses that are going to be much better prices, including the horse that he likes in Disruptor, who I think would go in this spot just because I felt like in the Challenger, he was getting better as the distances were getting longer versus Disco Time, who was just getting a little short, and he's cutting back to 7 furlongs in the Churchill Downs. So I'd be using Disruptor on some tickets. I do want to try New What's New, just because I do have some good belief in the time form numbers. And the fact that came back a 127, I mean, that 127 lines up with just about everyone in this race. I mean, that 127 is really not far off some horses that are going to be 4 or 5 times, or he's going to be 4 or 5 times the price of a lot of other horses in here that have run similar numbers to that. And not only that, he was in a hot pace. He was contested by a horse that was nowhere to be found when they hit the 16th pole, when they do that short wire finish down there in Hot Springs. And he's just got really good at Oaklawn. And I feel like people might make the case that maybe it was that he just liked the fact that he was down there at Oaklawn. But I think the fact that Luis Saez has just ridden him completely different to what he had been ridden in his prior races here in Kentucky. I mean, just absolutely pedal to the metal, and it's worked out super well for him. Obviously, his first 2 starts when Saez was able to be on board, he won those races by 20 lengths. And then you mentioned, Gino, the only horse that he lost to in recent time is Magnitude. I mean, we saw what he did when he went overseas, beat the best horse on the dirt in the world as far as I'm concerned. And I thought he backed it up nicely, even though the buyer was light. The time form is something that I'm going to give some major respect to. So I'm going to try him in what I think is a price that might even float, just because you've got the likes of Skippy Longstocking. Baeza is going to take some money. If Disruptor's in here, he's going to take some money. I think he could get double digits on the 6 new what's new.
And he's in pretty good form right now, Ryan. We'll go to you and get some of your thoughts now on the Ali Sheba kickoff leg of the pick 5 sequence. Who are some of the horses on your radar?
Yeah, not a lot of love for the 7-year-old and Skippy Longstocking from the 2 gentlemen below. But look, I get that the wedding was 2 races ago in the Pegasus, and you had a little bit of a honeymoon in the even money Essex handicap, but you can renew the vows a little bit at 7-2. I have no issue with that. Look, This horse is in career best form. I wouldn't put. I'm not going to bet this race super heavy. I don't have a super strong opinion. I think my top pick overall would probably be Corporate Power. I do think 3rd off the bench here. I think this horse is improving. Clearly got better with age as his 2 strongest performances have come off the bench now in the Steve Asmussen barn, and of course going the 2 turns. So I do think Corporate Power fits here. I'd play the Saver Exacta as a 7-8. In here. I do think New What's New is definitely an improved horse with Luis Saez. And I would imagine from the pace scenario, which we haven't talked about a whole lot, I would imagine he's probably alone on the lead in here. I think Grande's quick, but I don't think that he's naturally as fast as a horse like New What's New. Baeza is obviously sort of an off the pace time. Same with Navajo Warrior. Tapan Street used to be. I actually have no idea. I have no idea
what do we do with him, right? Because I mean, I was a personal favorite, but how do you feel about him after that just no show in the Pegasus? Nothing. And what's hard is when horses run that badly, you can't even really use it as a gauge because he's not that bad, right? It would have been worse if it was a non-threatening 4th, because then we could at least say he showed up and the competition was too good. But it's when they don't even run, then it's what do we take out of the race where we don't know anything at all? Was he just better than some of these horses last year? And it was the right timing, right? Because he's always going to be a well-regarded horse because he beat Sovereignty. That's going to be a claim to fame for him forever. He's the most difficult read for me, Ryan, in this race. I didn't know what to do with him.
I would agree. I would say because he's 4-1 on the morning line, you have to ignore him. That's way too low of a price to use for a horse that's never even gotten close to triple digits. And it's probably going to take a 104 to win. And you just don't know if he has that in the tank. If he was in the 10-1 range, I might have to take a small flyer with him because, again, they show up in this spot off of that performance. That has to be a little bit encouraging. He doesn't seem to have missed any time on the work tab coming out of that race. I mean, I just don't know what you do with him, but at 4-1, that's way too low of a price for me to want to take him.
Because I again, and I don't know what to do with Grande either, Jackson. I'll ask you because, on paper, he looks pretty good. He's got 2 races off the bench. They're solid. They're speed figure wise. They're very competitive with the rest of this group. What he did last year as a 3-year-old, those 3 races were all very good. But the problem is now that I'm looking at him and in this race, who has he faced and been competitive with that are this level of horse? Right. I don't know.
I think it's a fair question to ask. And my counter to that would be, well, he's going to be 8-1 in this spot. So I'm willing to find out at that price. Yep. I'm also not that surprised he ran poorly in the Go Zapper. I mean, it's very difficult to build upon a 105 buyer off of a 10.
You can only regress, right?
And it wasn't like it was a massive regression or anything. I will say the one thing that put me off a little bit was his most recent workout. I didn't think he looked tremendous in there. But again, at the right price, I think those might be things you were willing to overlook because we've seen his best race is arguably just as good as anyone else in here.
That's the key, right? Because I'm going through the field, and if he is in that 8-to-1-ish range, I think he could offer you value. Noah mentioned New What's New, who could offer you value. My worry about Skippy would be just price, not taking too short of a price on him, because I think we don't want to forget, because he's in such good form right now, that there was a little bit of a reason he was 20-1 in the Pegasus World Cup. Like, he had never really beat a group like that before. This would be the second best group he's ever beat. Like, no doubt about it. From top to bottom, it may even be better than the Pegasus World Cup. Like, it may be stronger. There were, like, White Avario was in that race and a couple, like, top tier runners. But just from a top to bottom standpoint, like, almost all of these horses you could look at if they were in the winner's circle, like if it was Corporate Power, if it was Disruptor, if it was New What's New, Skippy, Grande, Tapan Street, Baeza, none of them would shock. Be like, oh yeah, they got their trip. That's what it was. There's probably only one or two horses in here for me. Like, East Avenue, I'd have a hard time kind of getting to right now, just because I think he might have been one of those precocious horses who was fast and maybe a little bit ahead of everybody earlier in his career. But it wasn't like he ran poorly. He was kind of getting to New What's New at the mile. So just, Noah, let's put a bow on this, like top to bottom. This one is about as competitive and as cool of a race that we're going to see all weekend.
Oh, it's very competitive. And if you bring up the time form again, it projects that Baez is going to be last. And I think the consensus is Baez is a horse that is a favorite that you're supposed to play against. So in theory, regardless of who you like, isn't this a race that you're supposed to be playing on Friday?
That's what, as horse players, I love what you just mentioned, right? Sometimes we're going to have the right idea and just be wrong, but like, we got to be able to swallow that. We got to be able to know that, like, if I think of it, and when I try to compare it to sports, if you're a baseball player and like you're swinging well and you're swinging at the right pitches and you're putting good contact on, you're going to hit the ball hard sometimes and it's going to be right at someone, right? And that's what happens in situations where you do the right thing as a gambler, but it still hurts you. Like, that's for me one of the harder times where when I have to deal with it mentally. I'm like, I did the right thing. Like, I chucked the bad favorite out. I cut those horses out. I keyed the right horse. I was supposed to win that one, right? But you just keep creating the right habits, and you're going to put yourself in opportunities to do that. So like Noah said, if Baeza is a short price, this is the type of horse we're supposed to, as horse players, try to line up and beat. First time off the bench, a closer in a big competitive field like this. We don't know if he's ready to rock and roll. That's a good Ali Sheba to start the late pick 5. Anything else you want to mention, fellas, before we move to the Modesty? All good. Let's continue along. And as we turn the page to race number 10, the grade 3 Modesty kicks off the pick 4 sequence that will end in the Kentucky Oaks. Just want to let you know that we will have a show that Jackson was plugging. There you go, Jackson. I'll send you your checks in the mail. Kentucky Derby handicapping preview show Wednesday night. It's going to be myself, David Aragona, and Craig Mikowski. I got the call up to the big leagues, fellas. They called me in from the bullpen. Come on in. So I'll be sitting down with David and Craig, a couple of the absolute best when it comes to handicapping, creating figures. We'll get into the Derby, some of the races around that. If you have any questions, like Jackson was asking questions about the figure from New What's New, those are the kind of questions we'd love to hear from you Wednesday night, tomorrow night, 8:00 p.m. Eastern time. Let's get into the Modesty, the grade 3 Modesty here, Noah. And this might be one of the shorter prices, I think, in the races that we're talking about with Jazora, who it's kind of a strange spot, I think, for her, for being like a Breeders' Cup winner and such a classy horse, that she starts in this really soft spot because she's a multiple grade 1 winner and she's a 4-time graded stakes winner. And the rest of the field combined has 5 total graded stakes, and 2 of them were in Chile. Like, we don't even know really how they stack up because they were the ones that Donna Clota was running in Chile. So basically, she's a 4-time graded stakes winner, a multiple grade 1 winner, and she's facing an entire group combined that has like 3 graded stakes wins. She towers over this field on class because it's like it's almost like there's 2 races. Like, she's by herself, and then there's another race that like Proctor Street and Whiskey Decision and some of them are in. So, but it's weird to me, Noah, because like this is another situation where horse coming off a Breeders' Cup, I think she's a class and she towers over the field, but this is no way, shape, or form her end game this year, right? This is not the end all be all. I do not think she's going to be 100% cranked up for her best. And I do think it maybe tips the hand a little bit that they're running in a spot like this and maybe not a grade 1 race or a little bit tougher race. So, I mean, I went really back and forth with her, but Noah, let's start with Jazora and how you think she's going to fare in this race.
You're absolutely right. I mean, even the races prior to when she shipped over to run in the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf, most of her success came at distances that were actually longer than the mile and 3/8 that they ran down there at Del Mar in Southern California. And I feel like a lot of people forget she was the 7-2 morning light favorite in that race.
Yep.
Extremely dismissed by the public. She went off at over 9-1. And I just felt like She Feels Pretty ran so much better that day. And Jazora got a really, really good trip and a really good ride. It just kind of seems like the stars really aligned, and people are really going to focus in on the fact that she ran a 105 buyer. Now she goes into the condition of Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt. You're going to get your decent money from your casual bettors, obviously, just betting the connections and a horse that's obviously owned by Peter Brandt. I mean, he's got some serious credentials as well. So I think this race here obviously is not the end all be all, and especially at 4-5. I mean, I feel like you're probably supposed to take the approach of just to let her beat you. And if she does, I'm completely fine. I'm not going to have a ton of my bankroll in this race anyways. But again, at 4-5, I'll just take the wait and see approach.
And I think we have a couple fellas sitting right next to us that are going to try to line up and take a shot against her in this race. So we'll start with you, Ryan, race number 10, the Modesty. I think you're going to have a little double play in here, right? Want to talk us through how you're going to stack things up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Gazora, we mentioned all the reasons that Baeza is a vulnerable favorite in the race before, and they all, I think, apply here with Gazora. I think also this distance is way too short for what she wants to do.
Real quick, so that is Noah's not named double. Just want to let everybody know he's still named Noah, but if you see the double across his face, it's still Noah down there.
Hey, I could go for a double. You guys want to ship one to me when you come over?
Ooh, there we go.
Really go for one of those right now.
A little vanilla shake too. Thank you.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
I love it. Yeah, I'm gonna try and play a bit of a double here to try and beat Gazora. I do think Whiskey Decision's a very interesting horse, even though Chad Brown has not had a ton of success in this race. He's only won this race once with Bleecker Street, I believe in 2022, despite having, some multiple runners in here. I do think Gazora is vulnerable for a multitude of reasons, a lot of which that you guys mentioned. I think Whiskey Decision, a little bit of an up-and-coming horse where we possibly haven't seen the peak. She seems to be doing very well in her 2 starts this year when losing to Destino Doro, who's a very good horse. I threw in late Catherine and Marissa just because I do think she's improving. I spoke with Jackson. I know Jackson liked this horse a little bit, and I respected that opinion. And if I'm trying to beat this favorite, I can afford to throw in an 8-1 shot as well. And then the last one, which is my top pick, is the number 8 Pinup Betty. I love her going 9 furlongs at Churchill. I hope she opts here instead of the race she's entered for on Saturday. I think she's a much better fit versus this group, and I think she's eventually going to get through and punch through and get that big time win on the big time day here at Churchill. And I do think this is the time. I think 9 furlongs is her distance. You get JJ Hernandez, West Coast rider, coming out here to ride her for looks like the 3rd time, but I like her a lot in this spot.
She looks like they pointed her for this spot, right? They got the one race under her at Keeneland to get her fit for this. They know she loves this course. All of her victories have been here. I wonder if she's like, and that's what's hard, right? Because to me, it's like it was 2 races. Do I think she's as good as like a Breeders' Cup winner? But then you go back and like you can't do that, as Noah was pointing out. In that Breeders' Cup, Zora got a good trip. Things went well that day. This is a horse who hasn't raced in a while, so you can't play that game. Pinup Betty is very interesting as a multiple graded stakes winner who loves Churchill. And if you're trying to beat Zora, I think she's absolutely one of the ones. But maybe the most likely winner other than Jazora is the horse that I think Jackson likes a little bit, and one that Brian just mentioned a few minutes ago, and that's Catherine and Marissa. Again, he's not Catherine and Marissa. He's still Noah, but he's got the Catherine and Marissa over his face. Jackson, talk to us a little bit about the number 5 in here.
Yeah, she's not the Chad Brown, and she's not the other Chad Brown, but she's the other Chad Brown in this race. And we keep talking about Jazora. The race she ran at Del Mar is just going to be so different than the race that's going to happen on Friday. There was a lot
going
of
a mile and 8.
There's this is 9 furlongs. There's very little speed projected in here, and it just feels like this is Chad Brown's way of getting a race into her at a shorter distance. If she wins, phenomenal. But we're really going to target the New York Stakes on Belmont weekend. I mean, that's a grade 1. I think it's $750,000. That's her objective for this summer. So I'm not going to be shocked if she runs well here, but I think she's a bad favorite. Kathy and Marissa is a horse that's really interesting in here because, as I talked about, there's not a whole lot of speed. I think Stylish Sue's probably going to be the front runner here, but Kathy and Marissa has shown she's perfectly fine just sitting just off of a target. And outside of the one race Jazora has run, Kathy and Marissa's run the best speed figures of anyone in this race. If you're looking at Beyer, if you're looking at time form, it checks out in both of those. She runs well fresh. We know that from how she ran last summer at Saratoga. And it wasn't like she had the greatest trip ever in there. I mean, she kind of stumbled a little bit out of the gates. Horses crossed over her face, and she kind of had to rush up a little bit on the turn. She was pressing on the outside, which is never a great trip on the grass. I just was so impressed with the way she won that day. And she did it over a good field. I mean, you go back and look at the horses that came out of there. I think 4 of the 5 horses all improved pretty substantially on the speed figures coming out of that race. So that was a race I really wanted to upgrade. I've watched her work leading up into this. She looks phenomenal. I think she's got a huge shot in here. And if we can get anywhere close to that 8-1, I think it's a really good price.
Yeah, I think we've hit on like a lot of the real major contenders in here. You got to start with Jazora and what you want to do with her. But then once you get beyond her, the 3 Whiskey Decision is a logical contender. She had a tough trip in the Pegasus, and then in the Hillsborough, she just lost by a nose to a horse who was a little bit better that day and is in really good form. And there's no knocks on that at all. And if Jazora doesn't show up, this horse is absolutely right there, I think, with Catherine and Marissa as like top tier contenders. And those are a couple of the horses that Ryan has on the double ticket there. So for us, it's a little bit lukewarm on Jazora, respecting that she is the class of the field, no doubt about it. But this just doesn't feel like her spot. Like this feels like a starting spot for her. And for a lot of these other horses, like this is the Super Bowl, right? This is their Derby. This is their Oaks. This is a grade 3 race for $500,000 on Kentucky Derby undercard, or on the Kentucky Oaks undercard, where they're going to be running on like the biggest stage they ever had. This is a huge win for a horse like a Whiskey Decision or a Catherine and Marissa. And for Jazora, I agree with Jackson. It almost feels like starting point, and then we'll see in 5 weeks for the big race, you know, Belmont weekend at Saratoga, running in one of those big ones. So we kind of round things up with the Modesty. Anything else you fellas want to mention about this race before we move on? Awesome. I think we got that one covered pretty well. Let's turn the page to the grade 1 La Troyan. And Jackson, I think when Bless the Broken ran last time, I was on the show with you guys previewing the Southern California races because we were talking about Bless the Broken facing Splendora. And I thought Bless the Broken, who's going to be a contender in the La Troyan, ran pretty well there. She was just second best. She's not as fast as Splendora early. So Splendora is able to kind of make her own trip. I'd say Bless the Broken is a contender in here. I'd say you can look through this field and make cases for a few, like Shred the Gnar is going to take money, but gosh, it's tough. Like you can understand she didn't get the lead last time. She kind of had a wide trip, but as you were pointing out before, when I see horses that have trouble, I'd like to see a little more, like a little something than just kind of packing it up and just backing up early on. So that's a horse who I think will take some money, and we can kind of go back and forth on with Shred the Gnar. Jason's going to take money coming off of that win last time out at Colonial. I think she's a player. And then you've got Fully Subscribed. Might be the horse to beat in here just based on the overall form, the back-to-back wins in the Mother Goose and in the Comely. So, you know, I think those are a few that will, you know, get some support here early, Jackson. But I don't know if there's like going to be one overwhelming favorite in this race. Yeah,
I agree. It does seem like a race where the favorite is going to be pretty tepid. And Nick made
Shred the Gnar, I think.
Shred the Gnar, the morning line favorite at 3-1. She's probably going to be overbet because people are going to see the trouble line in that last race. She was done. She was going nowhere. It may be exaggerated, the margin she was defeated by, but she was not going to be in the top 3, probably not even the top 4. The issue I have with trying to take her on is I just don't know. The trip she got that race is going to be very different than the trip I'm envisioning for her on Friday. I think there's a good chance she gets loose in here. And there's other speed, but there's not like speed balls in this race.
She's going to be on the lead, right? Because
right.
I mean, like she didn't get the lead last time. I think sometimes you have a good horse like this, they want to sit off and see if she can sit off a little bit, and she couldn't, right? She was in between. She didn't have a great trip. I always think that after that happens, they like overcorrect sometimes. And it's like, right. I'm going to make sure that at the very least, win or lose, she's on the lead today.
Yeah, and that's her best game. And we've seen when she does get that lead, she's pretty good. I just wonder how good she actually is. I think there's enough. It's big enough field where someone's got to pressure her, right? Like there's no way she just shakes loose and they just leave her alone. I'd be surprised if that happened. So I'm going to try to take her on. I went to the inside, Unscalable, number 2 for Todd Pletcher. I think this is a filly that's they've had some trouble figuring out what she's best at. They were trying long, they went back to short, they tried grass at one point. I think they finally settled on this horse. This is a horse that wants to go 2 turns. On the dirt, that's her best game. And the race I really liked the most was the 1-2 back in the ladies stakes on February 6th. That was a day there was just a massive inside rail bias. And she didn't spend a single second of that race on that rail. She was 2-path, 3-path the entire way around there and still found a way to get the job done that day. And you look at a horse like Weigh the Risks, who was also in that race, was 2-5 for Chad Brown, a horse that runs 100+ buyers consistently, and was also in the 2-path, and she didn't even hit the board. I mean, that's how severe that rail bias was. And I think it's a race you're supposed to really upgrade from Scalable. And then she came right back in the top flight and won again, was able to improve a little bit. Didn't get a great setup. They didn't go particularly quick up front. I just think she's a horse that's kind of figured it out. She's rounding into form. She's kind of on the improve. And I think she's going to get the right kind of setup in here. So at 8-1, I think it's more than a fair price in a race that is really, really wide open.
It's easy to go, I think, either way on the short prices in here, Ryan, because like Shred the Gnar and Fully Subscribed on paper, they're lightly raced. They haven't been tested all that much. So we don't know quite as much about them, right? The more form that you have, the more we get a sense of who they are. We don't really know who these horses are yet at the highest levels. So that's a fun betting race, because if they are like 3-1-ish or so, that's actually not that short of a price on a horse that you may really like and you can key in on. But if you want to line up and bet against them, we could have some real nice alternatives. So how do you see this race, Ryan? Are you more in the shorter prices, or are you looking for some others?
Well, Shred the Gnar certainly, I would say, concerns me just for the fact that she does look like she could get loose in here. You get the aggressive rider in Luis Saez back aboard. He was out of town last time for the Royal Delta, so he wasn't on board that day. And you see, you mentioned they tried to kind of take her off the speed. That did not work. But 2, 3, 4 back, she got to the lead, and when she's on the lead by herself, she was able to go somewhat fast, especially in the Churchill Downs race, going the 1-turn mile in the Chaluki. She went fast and she ran them off their feet. She's the type that if she gets going, if she's alone on the lead, it's going to be really tough to reel her in. So while I respect her, I really like Fully Subscribed in this spot. I think this is a horse that can maybe lay a little bit closer first off the bench to start the 4-year-old season. If Fully Subscribed takes a step forward, I think even if Shred the Gnar is up on the lead by herself, I still think it's going to be Fully Subscribed's race to lose as they turn for home. I think Pratt, who's the best judger of pace in the country, is I know Jackson will agree wherever he went to. He's a black screen at the moment, but I'm sure he would agree with me if he were here. Pratt's going to have this horse close enough to the pace and within shouting distance at the top of the stretch. And I think that stretch is long enough that Fully Subscribed is really going to be able to lengthen that stride and go catch up. And some of the others in here, we kind of know what they are. Fully Subscribed is one of those lightly raced horses that was really getting good at the end of that 3-year-old season. This is where she debuts as a almost mid-season 4-year-old. If she takes another step forward, we could be looking at a mid to slightly mid-upper 90 buyer speed figure here. And I do think that would be very, very tough to beat.
You were kind of pointing it out, Ryan and Jackson. I think sometimes we forget that, like any athlete, jockeys will have strengths and weaknesses, right? Like not every jockey is the same. They're not all good on the lead or a good closer. They have different things that they excel at. In my opinion, that Ryan was hitting on, I think when there's a situation and Flavian Pratt's on a horse that either has speed or can sit close, and he has to make that decision, like his judge of pace is as good as anyone when he needs to make that move. And he may have to go a little early in here, right? He may have to be a little bit aggressive and try to put a little pressure on Shred the Gnar early in this race.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think when you're talking about judges of pace as far as jockey goes in North America, it's Flavien Prat way up here, and then there's a pretty significant gap to the next closest person. I mean, he's so good at knowing what's going on, knowing who's in the race, knowing who he has to beat, who he has to be worried about. He's phenomenal. So I don't know about this race specifically, though. I don't see her being as close.
Naturally as quick.
I just don't think she's naturally as quick. I think with the big field, I think it's going to be someone else's job to go pressure the 5 in this spot. I'm not saying she's going to be 10th early on, but I think she'll be closer to mid-pack.
And I know that our other co-host here, Noah, is a big fan. Noah, again, we're just blocking you out here with fully subscribed, but that's the horse that you like a little bit in this spot. And I think this is the horse to beat. Like, Shred the Gnar is a little like we saw last time. If she doesn't get the lead, or if she breaks slowly and something happens, then I'm really concerned about her chances of winning the race. Like, if she gets the lead and she's cruising out front, she has a great opportunity. Fully subscribed, she can win this race in different ways, right? She can sit a little closer. She can be more mid-pack. She's shown us a few different things. She just seems like a horse who I think is probably the most likely to run a really good race in here.
Absolutely. I feel like I find myself upgrading the horses that spent the winter in New York just because of the more grueling conditions. Like, if they're able to run comparable figures or times or numbers, or regardless of what you look at, in comparison to other horses that they're gonna be facing this weekend, I feel like when they get into the much better conditions that we've had here in Kentucky the last month or so, in theory, they're supposed to, take a step forward. And even the time that she's had off from the end of her 3-year-old year to the beginning of this 4-year-old campaign, her debut here on Friday, obviously you would imagine that she's going to take a step forward. She's been down in Gulfstream, obviously training down there at Payson Park for quite a while. So it just seems like the connections have been pointing to this spot all along. And like you said, she can beat you multiple ways. She came from off of it with a wide trip and the Mother Goose 2 back. And then they tried to back it down in the Cumberland, and Pratt said, you know what, I'll just go ahead and sit right off the pace, and was just as, if not more effective in that race. She got a 1:17 time form, which obviously is in line, if not better, than what some of the other horses in here have been running. And if she does take that step forward, she's going to get a beautiful trip from the outside. I think she's going to be really tough to beat.
Get Fully Subscribed is a horse that we all feel like going to run well in here. We'll see what happens with the pace scenario with Shred the Gnar. I am going to give, like, just in a pick 4, pick 5 standpoint, I'm going to include Bless the Broken again one more time back, because this may be a spot that she gets a little more pace to run at. And I don't think that there's a Splendora in here. So I definitely think that filly is a little bit above the rest of this group. So for me, Bless the Broken, maybe saving ground on the inside, third start off the bench. This will probably be one of the spread races, though, for me, I think, in the pick 4, pick 5, because a lot of the horses we mentioned will be in the mix for me. I like the 2 scalable a little bit as well. Bless the Broken and the 9. Those are sort of my top 3. 1, 2, and 9 are kind of in my top tier. The horse who I really didn't know what to do with was the 7 Chasen, who is still lightly raced, is moving in the right direction. But I worry, Jackson, that just like on a Brad Cox horse that comes off of a 95 buyer last time out, I don't really know how good those races were at Colonial. I think she's going to be a little bit overbet in here.
Yeah, I find it very difficult to judge those dirt races at Colonial and the abbreviated meet they have. I mean, even not only this year, but last year as well. Seems like it's kind of a Kentucky Down situation. You're kind of just, okay, whatever happened at Colonial kind of just stays at Colonial.
Exactly.
And you're supposed to judge her off her prior form. She does have a big late kick, and she's kind of close in some slow paces her last 2, to her credit. But I agree, she's probably going to be overbet for these connections.
Here's a look at the La Troyan. It's going to go as race number 11 as we lead into the Kentucky Oaks. We're coming up on the Edgewood. It's the grade 2 Edgewood for 3-year-old fillies, going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf course here. And wow, this is an awesome betting race. I mean, just so hard to make, like, to dismiss horses in here. I mean, just to like cross them out, it's very difficult to do so. You can start from the inside with Storm's Wake, who won the Appalachian last time out. Connect the Stars, probably going to be one of the bigger prices in here. But this horse ran second last time out behind Tam Tam in a stakes race. Will come closing. Imagination the Lady looks beautifully set up for the second start back off the bench. She ran a great race last time out. She was beat a neck by Storm's Wake. Lorelei Lee could have run in the Kentucky Oaks. They're going to try turf with her for the first time. She's actually a half sibling to a horse named Some Like It Hot Brown, who was a legitimate, like, graded stakes horse and was very good on the front end, won the millions, and you see, like, competing in grade ones at the highest level. So this was a really nice turf horse who earned 1.7 million. The pedigree's there for Lorelei Lee. Just Aloof could sit a pretty nice trip in here. I don't know how much early speed there is in that race. Tam Tam has won back-to-back races on the grass. Lovely Gray is going to run in the Oaks, so she'll be scratched. Lion Lake, look at those last 3 races. She's a neck away from having won 3 straight races, and it would have been back-to-back graded stakes. You can't knock Dandana, what she's done. She just beat Time to Dream. Time to Dream, who's the 11, was one of the more highly regarded horses in this division last year. She was only 4-1 in the Breeders' Cup. Out of this field of 14, I mean, 9 or 10 of them would not shock me at all. Let's start here with you, Noah, in this one. A really challenging race that they give us right before the Kentucky Oaks. So, you gotta get through this race to be alive going into the Oaks. Who are some of the horses that you want to start with?
Yeah, this is a really tough race, no doubt. The 8 Lion Lake in here is probably the horse I'm most excited to bet, not just on Friday, but the entire weekend. If you watch the Appalachian, Jackson, you good?
Entire weekend. I'm excited. Hit me.
Yeah, no, I like her a lot. In the Appalachian, if you watch that race carefully, got a pretty good trip throughout. When they were starting to go around the far turn, it looked like she wanted to be a little bit more forward than she was. And Johnny had a pretty good strangle on her. And going around that far turn, she wanted to make that move. And while the horses that ended up beating her, Storm's Wake and Imagination the Lady, had kind of already started to get their gears going and started to make that move 4 and 5 wide. Whereas she had to wait a little bit. There was the 2 horse in there, who I believe was either 40 or 45-1, who started to kind of backtrack a little bit and get a little tired and kind of backed up into her. So she kind of had to put on the brakes while those 2 horses were making their move going forward. She was kind of staying put or even going backwards at that point in the race, and then had to move to the outside. Looked like she wanted to go outside. There was a hole that did open up for her, and she got a pretty clean trip after that. But she closed really nicely. She closed just as fast as Imagination the Lady, and then obviously Storm's Wake, who was a big price that day, was able to get the job done. But Lion Lake, I think, is going to get a much more tactical trip than the other horses that she has to worry about in terms of the logicals in this race on Friday. And I think the extra 16th in the fact that I thought she galloped out really well in that Appalachian, so I don't think the extra 16th is going to be a big problem for her. I think just case in point, she's going to have a much more tactical advantage than the other horses that she's going to be close to. I think you can make the case that Just Aloof was in a very similar spot to her in the early stages in that Appalachian. But outside of her, I just see her getting a really good trip. And if she does get the jump on the stablemate, and some other kind of logicals in here, like Dandana, like Time to Dream, who have the style of kind of coming from way off of it. If she gets the jump, I think she's going to be really tough to run down. And you're going to get at least 6-1. I'm very excited about her.
There are going to be a bunch of horses at that price in this race. They're all going to be in that like 6-1 to 12-1 ish range. Ryan, who are some of the horses that you may want to have on your pick 5 ticket in this spot?
Yeah, if the pace scenario set up a little bit more, I would have really liked Dandana back in this spot. I thought, she really built upon that optional allowance race where she did encounter maybe a little bit of trouble or just maybe against the race flow there. She really showed that while the Florida Oaks set up for her, that late kick for home was really nice, and she won that nicely. However, I think the horse that's set up here is the number 3 Imagination the Lady. Noah, we view that appellation a little bit differently. I thought Imagination the Lady, that was the first start, to start the 3-year-old season. Now you get second up. I think that was a perfect prep for a spot like this. You saw her take that step forward, that progression from 2 to 3. And I think there's still a ceiling that we haven't seen yet, where Lion Lake has already been 4 races into this 3-year-old campaign. I think we've kind of seen maybe not her peak, but I think we've seen that she's not going to, have those major jump up in race 1 to race 2. Just Aloof coming out of that race, I thought had a really nice trip in there. She ended up getting through on the rail and just looked a little bit flat to the board for a guy like Chad Brown. That's not typically what you see from his horses when they come back. To the far outside, Time to Dream is going to take way too much money for me to ever want to bet her in this comeback spot. And Storm's Wake felt like was just the horse that kind of got up in time. That might be a weird kind of excuse down on the rail, but I don't like her really at all. in this spot. I thought Imagination the Lady is the horse that I want. Now, second up to start the 3-year-old season. Closed well last time, just maybe needed one. And I do think that was a perfect prep, perfect setup to land her here.
Imagination the Lady for Ryan Jackson. It was kind of hinted on a little before. The pace in this race it's saying it's going to be on it fast. I don't know if I completely agree with that. Like, I don't know if there are going to be a bunch of horses lining up, but it's such a big field that you just kind of assume that a couple of these horses in the field of 14 are going to go forward. So, like, how are you looking at this race setting up, and who's on your radar here?
I would imagine it's solely due to the fact that it's a large field. I mean, you look, it has Just Aloof on the front end. She's not exactly a speed by any means.
Yeah.
So, look, I thought this race was impossible. I'm going to take a little stab to the very far outside on To a Flame. I am a sucker for any horse who makes a wide move into the fastest part of the race on the grass, as she did last time. And then I think that probably just took its toll on her. I mean, she was wide both turns. Like I said, she moved early into the fastest part of the race, and she just got a little tired. She swapped back to her wrong lead in the final furlong. Things just didn't quite go probably as well as they would have hoped. And now that she's drawn post 14, I think the plan is she's got to be sent pretty hard out of there, whether it's to get to the front or to try to get to the, try to get forward and save a little bit of ground. She's run races that are close enough. She's going to be 30-1. I don't know, little flyer in a race that I don't love, and I think it's really difficult.
Like a moth to a flame, Jackson going to the 14 on the outside at 20-1. I'll take a swing also too. I kind of briefly mentioned this horse. I mean, I think the 3 is the horse to beat. So Imagination the Lady is going to be on all my tickets and all pick 4s and pick 5s everywhere. I think Lorelei Lee is a little bit sneaky because she ran, I bet her last time at a very fair price because her February 21st trip was brutal. Just a brutal trip. She was out wide. She made this huge move and she flattened and she still finished a pretty good third. And she ran behind a horse named Hen Party, who's actually going to be running in a turf stakes race on Thursday at Churchill Downs. So you may want to check her out there. And then when she went into Bourbonnette Oaks, they just went right to the front and she ran well. Like, there was not a lot of pace that pushed her that day. So if you're just looking at her from that race and you're not sure, she can come from off the pace if she has to. The race 2 back was sneaky good. And I mentioned the turf pedigree. And if we look around this field, as Jackson was pointing out, Just Aloof is not fast. I think if there's anyone that actually has intent to go to the lead in here, it's going to be the 4, Lorelei Lee, who has the turf pedigree, who just showed us she could win on the lead, going a trip like this on the synthetic. So it'll just come down to her taking to the grass. If she does, she'll be a fair price. And she probably gives us a really good run for your money, being out front early, getting in the race, in a race where there's not that much early speed on paper. So for me, the 3 is the one to beat. I think the 4 for me is the one to bet.
And it feels like everyone's going to look at that last race, like, oh, well, she got away with murder on the front end. She can't do that.
And
again.
Just dismiss her.
And they're going to neglect her. And like, wait, that scenario is not that impossible in this spot. Like, that exact same thing could happen here.
The one thing we do as gamblers, as we become more serious in horse racing, is like, you learn what Jackson was just saying. Like, you learn how to try to think about how other people are going to play the race, how they may project other horses. And those are the horses that you want to play, the ones that other people are going to shy away from, right? When you start and you learn, you're just trying to pick winners, right? At the very beginning, you're like, I'm going to pick the winner, right? And then at some point you progress from just picking winners to like finding the value, right? Who's the value in this race? And I think there are some definite habits that you want to start to create as horse players, because if you do those over and over, you're going to win a little more on the margins. And that's the difference between being a winning horse player and a losing horse player. Like the little times on the margins when you win 1 or 2 more times in a month, when you hit 1 or 2 more pick 4s or pick 5s than you should have. And I completely agree with what he was pointing out, that a lot of people will look at Lorelei Lee, easy lead on the synthetic, I'm just going to pass. If you catch yourself doing that with horses, take another second. Look at them for a little bit longer. And maybe you feel that same way. Like maybe you're going to end up passing on them, but just give yourself another look at those horses, because those are the ones that are going to separate you. Those are the ones that are going to give you the day changing and the life-changing scores. So now that I'm up off my soapbox preachy, does anybody else have anything to add on the grade 2 Edgewood here?
Tough race. This double is impossible.
Oh, I know.
Possible.
And we lead into the Kentucky Oaks. It's going to go as race number 13. And Noah, the Oaks, I mean, I didn't know who was going to be the favorite. I had no idea when they were making the morning line. I thought it could be one of 3 or 4 different horses that would end up being the morning line favorite. And that doesn't even mean they're going to end up being the post time favorite. I still don't really know. But when we go through the field, I mean, Explora was at the tip top of this group for a lot of the year, so she's going to get money. Zany has been, one of the best in this division. Counting Stars just ran a monster race at Oaklawn. Meaning was kind of the best of the West Coast horses. You have Always a Runner who's been very, very good in the mornings. People have really liked what they've seen from her as of late, and she doesn't seem like the same type of Aqueduct winner as late in these prep races. Prom Queen, Percy's Bar, Bella Ballerina, any one of them could win this race, and it would not shock me at all. So, Noah, let's start over here with you. Who are some of the horses that you like, and how do you see this Oaks playing out?
Yeah, this is quite the doozy. I mean, you can make a case that this is even more difficult than the Derby, which is
I think it might be. It's less like it's more confusing, right? In the Derby, there's a top 3. They're the big 3, and then there's like another tier of like 5 or 6 horses, and then the long shots. There's 8 or 10 horses that are all in the same grouping here for me.
Yeah, it's really tough. I'll start my conversation with Explora, who I think you can make a case is just as effective on the lead as she is just sitting off of it. I don't think the rail is going to be much of a concern because it just seems like Pratt can either go, or if some of the other fillies who are outside are just hell-bent on getting the lead, she can just kind of sit the pocket. And obviously she's been very, very classy. I know she had a little hiccup where she had the flu and didn't make the fantasy, but I got to give credit to either Ryan or Jackson who said this could be a blessing in disguise. Just the fact that she had that little break to get her ready for the first Friday in May, which is coming up here in a couple of days. So obviously tons of respect in her camp. Percy's Bar is another one I just have mad respect for. It just seems like all of the obstacles that have been in front of her, she's cleared with flying colors. I mean, there's a question of whether she was going to replicate that form to 2 to 3. There was some questions about, whether she could be as effective coming from off the pace. And the biggest question was whether she could beat Zany off that long layoff. And she did that as well. And she did it, handily. I thought she was really, really impressive in that race here in Lexington just a few weeks ago in the Ashland.
That was awesome. Like off the bench after having missed time, like that was just, I was totally lining up to try to beat her that day. Like I just thought she was going to be vulnerable at a short price, and she was awesome.
Super, super good. So I'll use her and Explorer, and then my top pick is the number 9, Always a Runner, who it just seems like as time goes on, she's becoming more and more of the wise guy horse in this race. I think it's probably more realistic that you get about 6 to 1 compost time. But I know Chad's always had some high hopes for her. Won her debut going 2 turns, which I think is probably a telltale sign there. She did it very convincingly. Obviously, the Beyer didn't come back all that great, but she significantly proved, at least on the Beyer and time form scale, when she was able to defeat that group in the Gazelle. And I feel like the major concern with her is a lot of people are noting the fact that, okay, maybe that field in New York wasn't all that good. Just look at some of the recent Oaks winners from the last couple of years. I mean, I didn't think the fantasy group that Torpedo Hannah beat was really all that good. I didn't think the Fairgrounds crop that
Good Cheer,
thank you, was really all that good. I mean, she was blowing those fields away. It just, to me, it seems like the recent trend with the Oaks is it's more of how you're beating these fields versus who you're actually facing in those fields. I thought the way she won last time, I know it's her 3rd career start, but I just feel like she has all the means to take another step forward. And I just don't see a way that the lights are going to be too bright on Friday.
So for Noah, those are his thoughts on the Oaks, a couple, including Always a Runner who, she's going to be on the tickets for me. She's going to be in the mix for me. But Jackson, you're going to go with Explora, I believe, who has really been in all of the big fights. Like what's cool about her, she beat Counting Stars. She was right there with Meaning. She was in front of Percy's Bar. Like she's been competitive with a lot of the really top tier horses in this group.
She has. I think she's the most battle tested, you could argue. I mean, she's run 7 times, and I was talking to Noah and Ryan about that. Like, I think missing that race at Oaklawn might be a blessing in disguise because she didn't really have a break from 2 to 3. She didn't really have any time to grow up. They run her back, I think, just 2 months later. And then that was going to be her first start in 10 weeks, and then you're going to turn right around and run the Oaks again. So I think, she could have used that time to grow up a little bit. She's training really well. I'm not worried about Baffert leading up into a race 8 months or 8 weeks off of a layoff.
Yeah.
Like, out of anyone in the country, he's the most equipped to do it. This horse has been training 6 furlongs, 7 furlongs. Those are really like mile workouts. Like, fitness is not going to be an issue. Can she get the distance? Maybe. That could be a question mark that I wouldn't really argue with anyone. But I think most importantly, we've kind of been talking about this field looks so evenly matched. Like, so many horses can win. They all kind of run the same numbers. Who gets the best trip? And to me, the horse that's most likely to get the best trip is Explorer. I love the rail for her. Some people might not like it, but I think it's going to force Pratt to come out of the gates running, at least for the first furlong, to hold that ground and then kind of get the white Abarrio trip. You look to your right and say, if no one goes, okay, I'm taking it. And if a couple horses really want to go, great. I'll sit the pocket and get a really sweet trip on the rail. I'm going to stay out of trouble and not have to worry about all these kind of traffic issues. So I'm hoping she's around 6-1 price. I think it's pretty fair on her, and I think she's got a big shot.
Yeah, you're going to get better value on her without that rate, without having run another race, right? Just the fact that she's been a little bit out of sight, out of mind. And we saw Counting Stars come back with a really impressive win. And we saw Percy's Bar win the Ashland, all in the time that Explorer has been, just kind of off the radar a little bit. But she's got the second most races in the field. So she's seasoned. Like, she's been tested. Fitness, as you pointed out, is not going to be a concern for her. It's just, does she get the race shape? Does she get the distance in here? So Ryan, let's get back over to you. Let's say maybe you're alive in a pick 4 or pick 5 situation coming into this race. Like, how deep would you want to be, or how many of the horses do you really need to have on your tickets?
Well, I'm hoping to be alive in my third and final best bet, where I'm going to single Imagination the Lady to start things off, and I'm going to use 2 horses in the Oaks. Got to use the 4 Counting Stars. Jackson, you and I did multiple shows at covering Oaklawn during the winter and spring. We covered the Martha Washington, where, Counting Stars clearly was a no-show, and she had to bounce back, and we covered that for the Honeybee, where she did, and then she came back off of that effort and then built upon that once again in the Fantasy. So now I'm willing to just say Martha Washington, she just decided not to run that day, as some of these fillies do, but she comes in here off the field best buyer speed figure. In my opinion, the best form, and she's shown that she can run multiple different races. She's come from 6th for 4 or 5 lengths off of the lead. She's come from just sitting 2nd last time, and given that was a 5-horse fantasy field that scratched that went down after Explorer, had to miss that spot, and it would have been nice to see them rematch once again. And Counting Stars certainly kind of had everything her own way, but even so, she drew off so nicely versus that group, and that was a really powerful performance. So I like her in here, especially at the 8-1 that she's going to offer on the morning line. And then the other one we haven't talked about is the number 10 Prom Queen, who I'm not often one to jump and trust these horses that come from Gulfstream, just because typically that racetrack can just be a little odd sometimes. But this filly's really grown up in every one of her starts, and she really took a step forward in the Gulfstream Park Oaks last time. She dispatched the rest of that field, and her two-turn starts have been her strongest yet, and she's drawn off from those groups. I think 8-1 again is great value in an Oaks that is impossible to make heads or tails of. I liked Zany a little bit coming in, but that morning line was way too low. You got to try and beat her in that spot, especially off of what you've seen in those 2 starts to her 3-year-old season. Percy's Bar, that was an impressive win in the Ashland. She didn't come out to Churchill to work. She's still working at Keeneland. We don't know if she's just a horse that loves Lexington, Kentucky. Maybe she really just did take a step forward, but if she wins, she's going to beat me. I thought Prom Queen and Counting Stars offered the best value. They're both 8-1. So I got to take swings with them to end the day. So I'd be too deep in my horizontals that I play. Prom Queen and Counting Stars.
Go ahead, Jackson. Yeah. I
got a goofy horse for you guys. And I'm a little worried that the owner might bet $1 million on her and she's going to be 5-1. But Lovely Gray is super live, I think, in this race. She has run 2 races at Turfway Park where she had no business running as well as she did, closing into absolutely crawling paces up front. Horses in both those races got loose on super easy leads. She closed into both of them. And I thought she ran really well when she really wasn't supposed to. And I know the buyer were kind of light, but Bayer's a final time figure, and it's not going to ever be fast. You look at the time form where they upgrade based on pace, and her time form numbers are only a couple points slower than some of these favorites in this race. And the difference between those races and Friday, there's so much speed in here. I mean, there's speed drawn inside, there's speed in the middle, there's speed drawn on the far outside. This pace is going to be so much quicker than what she's seen in her last 2 races. She's going to come running late. It's just a matter of, can she translate her form to the dirt? Because that's the question mark. We don't really know. I'm not putting any stock in the debut on a sloppy track going 5 furlongs. That's just not her game. Pedigree says it's okay. We'll see. I'm hoping she's the right kind of price, because I do think I want to use her.
Yeah, with her running style too, she's the type of horse who at least in like tries, right? When you're looking for big prices that are going to come running late. For those who don't know what Jackson may have been referring, she's owned by Barstool Sports' Dave Portnoy. So he loves to bet on the races, and you always get some of the Barstool money coming in. You can see she was favored in her last start, but I mean, she was logical in that race in the Bourbon at Oaks. She ran second, and her last 2 races were solid. And I always point this out. You're just not going to get as fast of figures coming off of the synthetic surfaces as you are on turf or on dirt. You just don't. They don't go as fast early. You don't have this brilliant like races where horses run off and win by 10 and get these monster speed figures. So you're just going to get lower figures from horses coming off the synthetic races. The key is the price, right? If she is like getting some of that wise guy money because she's a popular horse for Barstool, then she's not worth it. But if she is 25-1 and above, absolutely. Like, throw her in the mix, because she can pass horses, and she's certainly like a fun long shot in a race like this. So I do want to pick your brains on the Derby. Do you guys have any other thoughts on the Oaks you want to share before we pull up the Derby?
No, I'm good.
Anything else? Okay. Do me a favor, Ryan, as I'm pulling up the Derby graphic, let me know what are some of the other shows where we could find you guys this week, or we could find you, and then I'll give Jackson and Noah a chance to plug. Where else can we see some of your work? And, what other shows are you guys going to be doing this week, talking Oaks, Derby, and all the big races?
Absolutely. So Jackson and I, it's up on the In the Money YouTube show channel now. We covered the All Turf Pick 4. That is a new wager being offered. Or they said it's a new wager. I swear it's been around for a couple of years. But we covered that one. Some excellent turf racing. Obviously, all graded stakes as it goes down. So we covered that. We will be on the HHH channel tonight covering the Oaks and some Oaks picks. And then by the time this goes up, I would imagine there'll be another show of myself, Jackson, and Eric DeCosta of In the Money covering the 2-day Pick 6. We're going to do a show for that. That's 1 p.m. Pacific time today, Tuesday. So whenever this goes up, I'm sure it'll be available on the channel. We'll be going live for that one. And then I think that's it, Jackson. Aside from all the other stuff that we've put out on HHH, we're doing some write-ups for In the Money. And it's tough to keep track of. I just wake up and I'm just in front of the camera, and I'll talk about whatever races, and I'll find out what I did later on, after after it's all done.
So we'll make sure that in the description too below, and then we'll tag everybody on socials too, so you can follow along with them. Jackson, where can we find a little for you, and what's on your schedule coming up?
Yeah, echo everything that Ryan said, and I'm sure Noah's going to talk about all the stuff that I'm going to do. All my stuff overlaps with these two, so they can talk.
And Noah, I've joined you guys on the show Tuesday nights for a little bit, where we talk some like Southern California. That's one of your regular shows, right? With the three of you guys.
Yeah, so we'll focus on some West Coast racing, which obviously us four love, obviously being based down there in Southern California. But we'll do those on Tuesday nights, and then the schedule's just kind of gone awry with all the Derby stuff and all the shows that we've done leading up. We've had Derby previews, Oaks previews. We had a little Derby draft, which I think is the third year that we've done that little snake draft. That was fun. And then last night we had a How to Bet the Derby show, or at least we were supposed to. But anyway, just a bunch of stuff over on the channel. And have a lot of fun with these guys, obviously, with the banter and the good content. It's going to be fun, and looking forward to a good weekend. Yeah,
we'll have all of your social tags in the video stream that comes out. And if you want to follow along with these guys, I love chatting races with all three of you. You guys put in the work. You have little different ways that you each look at the races and approach it, which is what I like. Like, you're not just repeating something that somebody else says. You all have your own unique little insight to everything. And there's a lot of older folks in this game. We need to talk with the younger people as much as we can. We need to hear from them, and we need to promote them. So I love chatting races with the three of you, and we're going to try to do this again in a couple weeks for the Preakness, and then again for the Belmont. But before we get out of here, let's give a quick thought on the Derby. So we got the field here. Let's start with you, Jackson. there's like a big three or so that are going to take a lot of money. Renegade, Commandment, Further Ado. Those are the three that are kind of that top tier of betting choices. And then you got the next tier of runners who will all probably be double-digit odds and above. Who do you land on, and who are a couple of the horses that you definitely want to use?
Yeah, I think the struggles I have with this year's Derby is I really can't toss any of the top contenders. Like they all have merit, and I don't really think they have major knocks.
I know, and that's what's hard when you can't just slot one out right away, right, and just cross them out.
So I'm probably going to keep it pretty simple this year. I think the value is so happy. It feels like a lot of people read off California form this year, and before the race even happened at San Diego Derby, like, oh yeah, California form, no good. And then he wins pretty decisively and comes back on the clock. And you're like, oh, well, he ran pretty fast. He ran just as fast as Commandment. He ran just as fast as Renegade, arguably faster than Renegade. You know, Further Ado is probably a bit of a standout. But other than that, the one race Further Ado is run, he's right up there with everyone else. And he has a pretty big tactical advantage over Renegade and Commandment and the Puma. So if he's going to be 15-1 in that race, I think he's going to be in the right spot. He's got numbers that fit. I think it's pretty good value.
Jackson, he's my second pick, and you have to just make a decision as a gambler sometimes, right? There are things that we don't know, and we have to just say, I'm going to hope that this is right. And I'm going to hope that that the buyers and the speed figures for the Santa Anita horses are accurate. Because if so, then So Happy and Patente all of a sudden become really interesting horses at big prices. They almost have similar careers when you look at what's happened to them in their last few races. Like 2 starts back, So Happy in his first start going long, he got caught up on the lead, and he doesn't really want to run that way. And then the opposite happened to Patente last time, right? They like flipped. Yeah. And it's funny because I think both of them will end up sitting off a little bit and getting the trips that they had when they won their big races. Right. I have them, Ryan, as my number 2 and 3 horses, just because I think they're both flying a little bit under the radar. I like the Gulfstream horses. I think they're good. I'm going to take the assumption that the Santa Anita horses are good too, and maybe a little bit better than people think. How about for you, Ryan? Who are some of the horses on your radar?
Yeah, I completely agree with the Santa Anita Derby assessment where So Happy and Patente, I think they're great value. They'll certainly be on my horizontals. My top pick, I think I'm taking the Puma in here. I do think he'll drift up a couple points from that 10-1. I think Chief Wallaby is going to take a lot of money. I think Commandment's going to take a good bit of money. I do think you'll get at least 10-1 on the Puma, which is good enough for me. I love the Florida Derby, the road to the Derby through Florida. I think it's always been pretty strong and they've run well. So obviously I got to use Commandment for that reason as well. The one favorite the one of the, the top morning line choices that I am going to toss or not use is Renegade. I don't like him at all. I don't think that he's really faced anybody this year in his 2 starts in the Sam F. Davis and then the Arkansas Derby, both of which, in my opinion, came up a little bit light. And he blew the doors off those fields the way he should have, but we haven't really seen him face a lot of adversity this year. And we haven't seen him really have to, dig in and dig down. And I do think he's going to be the favorite come post time. So I really like Commandment. I do think the stretch out to the 1.25 miles, I think he'll handle it with ease. So Happy, also going to be on my ticket, the Puma. I got to use Incredible because I think I told Jackson that was my Derby pick as soon as he won the Virginia Derby, which was half sarcasm, but I got to use him a little bit in here because I did think that was a very nice step forward. And then I got to give love to the West Coast and my employer in Pavlovian because hey, Redham and Doug, they can win it for a third time together. So I'll use all those on my tickets, but my top pick would be the Puma.
I think there's only been like 3 owner trainers that have won it 3 times, or it's a very tiny number. If they get into that, that's like a top stratosphere of like Derby success when you've able to win it 3 times with the same owner and trainer there together. So Noah, what's so fantastic about racing and why it's incredible, like we all love sports, basketball, baseball, but you're playing the Lakers or you're playing the Rockets, right? One of the two. Like in this, we got 20 options and it's great. Ryan's here talking about why he doesn't like Renegade. And then we go right to you and Renegade's your pick. And that's just awesome about a show like this. 2 buddies who talk to each other all the time. But they have completely different opposite ends of the spectrum opinions here. So you're going to go with Renegade. Talk to us about Renegade and maybe a couple of the others that you'll be using.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you see it week in and week out if you tune in on Tuesday nights. I mean, we give each other a lot of crap, especially with horses that we like or don't like, and we're definitely not afraid to give it back and take it. But Yeah, Ryan and Jackson don't like him very much. I went with Renegade. I just feel like out of the top 3 favorites in here, I feel like he has the biggest prerogative to take another step forward versus, Further Ado, very similar to what Grande did down at Gulfstream Park, where it just seems like, is he really going to take a step forward off the 106? I find
that's
that
a good point, right? Like I do that. What you're saying with those 3 of the 3 of them, who could still be peaking, right, and have another step. The other 2 might have plateaued a little bit, and that might be their ceiling where they can kind of only go backwards.
Yeah, and Commandments run back-to-back 100 buyers. I mean, it's not impossible that he takes another step forward, but maybe, just maybe, we've seen the best of him in those 2 races down in South Florida. So I just feel like Renegade is one where if someone really takes a big step forward, he's going to get the pace in front of him. I have no worries about the rail. I don't have any worries about him kind of weaving in and out of traffic, getting out in the clear. And obviously he's got IRAD, one of the best jockeys to ever do it. That's going to be on his back. So I think he's going to get a pretty decent trip from the perspective of being down on the inside and trying to navigate his way out. And there's been a lot of talk about, people are worried about the rail. So you could see him drift to 9-2 or 5-1. And that just makes me much more intrigued.
Any other price horses that you're going to throw in?
I'm a little interested in Full Effort. I've got the bookend exacta 1/20.
I like that.
I just feel like Full Effort's another one that could take a big step forward, and all the indications in terms of breeding and what we've seen from him in the mornings doesn't seem like the dirt's going to be much of a problem. And even if it is a problem, if you're connections that have a horse that's trying that surface for the first time where they can endure that kickback, isn't the 20 post as ideal as it gets? I mean, you can stay out there for as long as you want. Tyler can decide whenever he needs to or needs to, tuck over to take a turn to his left and have to endure that kickback. And he's one that I think he's right there with some of the other horses, maybe not to the level of the other 3, but you could certainly make a case for him at a big price. I mean, if he's not a win contender, I think he's someone that's really going to take a lot of attention in those exactas, those tries, and those supers that a lot of the casual bettors will be playing on Saturday.
And he looks so much on paper like Final Gambit, right? Mm-hmm. Who ran well in the Derby, like trying the dirt, and they've done these connections, have done this before. And the synthetic at Turfway, a lot of those horses that plays pretty well to Churchill Downs and that type of racetrack over there. So for everyone, we're going to go in like a different direction with the top selection. I've got Commandment on top. It's like one of those situations where I've liked him early, and so I've just never really had a reason to get off of him. And I feel pretty confident that he's going to run his race. He's going to run a good race. I think of the favorites, I feel the best about the race he's going to run. Like if Renegade got in some trouble down on the rail or he was too far back, that wouldn't completely shock me. If Further Ado, maybe he got parked a little bit, or maybe he, regresses off of that monster, speed figure last time out. I just think Commandment is solid. We've seen him come up the rail. We've seen him come around the outside when he has to. He's been tested. If you're just taking horses based on like who's beat the best horses, I think it's Commandment. Like the horses coming out of Gulfstream Park, he's beat Chief Wallaby a couple times. He's beat the Puma previously. I think he's faced the strongest groups. And I don't think he has to be as far back as maybe Renegade. Like the difference from a closer in the Derby, like can Commandment be 10th instead of 20th, right? That's a big difference. Can you be more like middle of the pack versus towards the way, way back? I think he's going to run well. Then I got the 2 Santa Anita horses, So Happy and Patente. The one like big bust out long shot that's going to be 50 lengths behind, but will come running late is Golden Tempo. I think he could at least be like a 3rd and 4th horse for like the bottom of your exotics. And how cool would it be for Cherie DeVoe if he ran well? I mean, obviously if he won, she would be the first trainer ever, female trainer ever to have a winner in the Derby. But those are the horses that are going to be in the mix a little for me. So yeah, fellas, it's Tuesday afternoon-ish now as we finish up. We're a couple days out, and now it feels real with all the past performances. I want to do one quick run through of some of the things that we have for you: a daily racing form, those Derby packages, and the Clocker reports. Very important. Mike Welsh has been there for the last couple of weeks, so you can get those for Oaks and Derby Day. Don't forget to join us on the Wednesday night seminar with myself, with David Aragona, and with Craig Milkowski. So Ryan, buddy, it's been a blast chatting with you. Hopefully this is the first of many conversations that we have sitting down, previewing races through the years for the daily racing form. Anything else you want to mention, Ryan, before we get out of here?
Yeah, this has been a ton of fun. As you actually turned to me when we were talking about the Derby, my phone lit up with a notification, and I checked it as Jackson and Noah were going through their picks. Terry Frank, who was at the final table for the NHC, coincidentally sent me an iTunes album called Mi Amigo El Puma.
Look at that.
It was for the Derby pick. So that feels like it was meant to be. So maybe I got to single the Puma now. But other than that, I'm sure the four of us will be back on the DRF airwaves soon. This is the time.
Absolutely. Jackson, anything else you want to say or put a bow on it as we get out of here?
No, fun time. Looking forward this weekend and just want to wish everyone good luck and it's going to be fun.
Noah, really enjoyed chatting with you guys the last year. I love coming on your show anytime you need. Tell us again where we can find the show. Give us a plug and then anything else you want to mention before we get out of here.
Yeah, just look up HHH Racing Podcast. We've got a website. You can throw a .com at the end of that or just go to YouTube and throw that in the search bar. But a lot of fun last hour and a half talking with you guys. And regardless of whether the wallet increases or decreases, I know we're going to have a lot of fun this weekend.
Yeah, I always learn a little something from you guys. I will pick up stuff. There's a horse that's not on my radar that one of you leads me to. I will give Jackson credit for the next couple of years for basically tuning me into British Isles. Like I was kind of going in that direction. And then after having a conversation with him, he pointed me over that way. So just love chatting races with you guys. Ryan, Jackson, Noah, you're going to see them around on the daily racing form shows coming up at least in the next couple of weeks where we're previewing Preakness stuff, Belmont stuff. And I got a lot of great races to talk about. So I'm going to play a commercial for DRF Newbie as we get out of here. This is the product that you want to share with all of your friends that text you and they're like, hey, here's your Derby pick, and because I get a lot of them and I'm like, I haven't had one text from you since last year on the Derby, right? Maybe there's like a happy birthday in the middle of there somewhere if I'm lucky. But when they ask you, hey, who do we like in the Derby? Tell them, if you check out this new DRF platform, it's called DRF Newbie. It's super user-friendly. It's not like the past performances we open up that are a little intimidating. It's got graphs. It's got colors. It's very easy to read. You can look at the pace projector. You can figure things out quickly. So send this on over to your friends that are looking for a little help. Kentucky Derby weekend. For Ryan, for Noah, for Jackson, I'm Gino. And we got to give a big shout out to producer Sheba. She's been like awesome for me the last couple of weeks, helping me with videos. She came to Santa Anita with me, was recording a bunch of stuff yesterday. She's helping us produce this and the webinar. So shout out to Sheba for stepping up and helping us out.
Yeah,
and,
Sheba.
Go ahead. Yeah. Sheba, everyone. Team Sheba. Awesome. Well, good luck to all of you out there. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. And here's a little look at DRF Newbie before we go.
Think horse racing is too complicated? Think again.
And they're off.
Every pro was a newbie once. Meet DRF Newbie, the mobile tool loaded with daily racing form data and the power of DRF AI.
What a shocker.
Get the insights you need fast so you can play smarter and feel more confident. DRF Newbie, horse racing made simple. Try it free today. Visit Newbie.